There are over 45 million Americans that owe federal student loan debt, and if you're one of those people, this video is for you. What's up guys, I'm Lo if you're new to my channel, and my husband and I are working on paying off six-figure student loan debt. At this point, we owe just under $300,000 of student loan debt. And my husband and I both started out with federal student loans that we then refinanced into private student loans at the end of 2019. So as you may imagine, this topic of federal student loan debt and what to do about it is very near and dear to my heart because it affects my family very personally and has made a huge impact on our financial options. So while I felt for many years that our situation of between me and my husband owing $300,000 of student loan debt is kind of a strange, unusual situation, I've now learned that it's really not that uncommon, unfortunately. There's more than 1 million people in this country that have six-figure student loan debt. So the first point I want to make in this video is if you have student loan debt, you are not alone. And if you are overwhelmed by your student loan debt, you are definitely not alone. Federal student loan debt payments are currently on forbearance because of the pandemic, and the earliest that payments are going to restart is October of 2021. Now that could get extended because it was extended before, but there are signs that it is not going to be extended. And so counting on that being extended and not facing the problem of how to pay your student loans is really not a great strategy at this point. So if you're stuck and you're not really sure where to start, the first thing that I'd recommend doing if you haven't already done this is figure out what student loans you actually have. If you have private student loans, then I don't know of a really easy way to figure out which lenders you have student loans from, but you probably have correspondence from those lenders. But if you have federal student loans, the first step that I recommend you take is going to studentaid.gov. That is the government website that has the record of all of the student loans that you've ever taken out, whether you're in school or whether you've graduated. So logging into your studentaid.gov account is a great first step to just figure out what loans you have, how much you owe, and to start to develop a plan. Because if you don't know what numbers you're actually dealing with in terms of your student loan debt, it's impossible to develop a plan of attack. The next thing that I would recommend you do after you figure out exactly how much you owe in student loan debt is to create a debt payoff plan. So in order to develop a strategy for student loan debt payoff, particularly if you have six-figure student loan debt, I think the answer is you really need to turn to an expert. And before I get into the specifics of like what I'd recommend you do, I want to tell you a little bit about our story. My husband and I had federal student loans and we were both on income-based repayment. And so what that meant is that our payments were determined by how much income we brought in based on what we had reported on the prior year's tax return. And so our payments in our particular situation were not even enough to cover the interest that was accruing on our loans every single month. So when each of us made a payment, it would all go towards interest, nothing would go towards principal, and every single month our student loan debt balances were going up and up and up and up. And that was a very, very scary position to be in. And we didn't know where to turn or what resources we could use to figure out what we should do with that situation. The only thing that I knew of is that if our income got high enough that we could afford to refinance and lower our interest rate, then we could get to a point where our payments were covering the interest and principal and our student loan debt balances would start going down every month. And so we did get to that point because our federal student loans had around a 7% interest rate, and we were able to refinance and get more between a 4 and 5% interest rate on our student loans. And so that's what we did in December of 2019. We refinanced all of our federal loans, at that point it was over $300,000 of federal loans, into private loans. But we had no idea that the world would turn into what it did just 4 months later, because in March of 2020, the federal government paused student loan debt payments and interest up until, September of 2021 at this point. And so we lost out all benefit from that, and we've had to pay student loan payments and interest all the way along. The other thing that we gave up is student loan forgiveness. So if there's any student loan forgiveness that's passed at any point in the future, we are not eligible for that because we no longer have federal student loans, and any of the forgiveness programs that already existed at the time that we got our loans, they were already built into our loans and our contracts with the federal government. We gave up all of those options as well. Now, how did we make that decision? Well, I wish I had a really great answer for you, but the best answer I can give you is It's what we thought was the right thing to do. We thought the right thing to do was to get our loans under control and get them paid off, because all I was reading is that these forgiveness programs on income-based repayment and public service student loan forgiveness and all this stuff aren't going through and aren't working, and even some people go so far as to say they're a scam. And so I just got scared. My husband and I were scared, and we thought, you know, if we can lower our interest rate and just pay these off over time, then that's probably the best thing to do. So based on instinct and very little information, we made a huge financial decision and a huge leap to take our loans out of federal loans and into private loans. And as it turns out, not that we could have predicted the pandemic, but we ended up losing tens of thousands of dollars in protection from the federal government that we would have had if we wouldn't refinanced. Was the timing bad? Sure. If the pandemic hadn't happened, would it have been the right decision? Maybe. It maybe was the right decision, and it maybe still is the right decision. But the thing is, we made that decision based on not enough information. At that time, I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't think there was anyone out there that had the answers to the questions that I had on what we should really do, like what was the best strategy based on my particular family and our income and our life goals and our circumstances and all the loans that we had. But I did call Mohila, which was the company that was servicing our student loans at the time, and tried to get information, but they really weren't helpful. And they're not really there to like give you advice. Like, that's not what they're there to do. So we just made the decision and didn't look back. So in the fall of 2020, I started listening to a lot of personal finance podcasts, and I came across someone on a podcast. His name was Travis, and he runs a company called Student Loan Planner. And he was interviewed about what he does. What he does is he advises borrowers with student loans on how to best pay those off. And the more I heard him talk, the more I realized that like there are people out there with expertise in understanding student loan debt, particularly federal student loan debt. On that podcast, he talked about the different forgiveness programs and how they work and all the requirements and different strategies for if you're married, you can file your tax returns separately. Like all this depth of knowledge that I never thought anyone would be able to understand. Like I thought that just the government wasn't gonna help you and you had to figure it out and it was too complicated to figure out. And let me back up, in case you're not familiar, I'm an attorney. Like I am not someone who struggles to read complicated financial information and contracts and statements, but I was struggling in understanding what my options were. So this is a really, really complicated question that the average borrower, including myself, is generally not able to figure out on their own. So going back to Student Loan Planner, I came across Travis and Student Loan Planner and I heard his story. He got really passionate about understanding student loans because he married a doctor and his wife had like exorbitant student loans, and so personally they had to figure that out. And from there he just took off with it, and he learned really everything under the sun about student loans and started his company, Student Loan Planner. And now they've helped thousands of borrowers come up with good strategic plans on how to pay off debt, particularly six-figure student loan debt. The way it's been described to me by Student Loan Planner is they are trying to be the Vanguard of student loans. And when I think of Vanguard, which is the company that I personally use for my retirement account, is a company that is a trusted expert that provides a really valuable service at a very reasonable fee. And that's exactly what I think Student Loan Planner is. After I discovered Student Loan Planner, I followed them on Instagram, and back a couple months ago, they posted something that really like hit home for me. And they did a survey on how student loan debt affects mental health. And they found that people have actually had suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideations because of their student loan debt. And I can't say that like I've had suicidal ideations because of my student loans, but I can say for a fact that student loans have had a hugely negative impact on my mental health and physical well-being over the years. I graduated from law school at 25 and I'm now 34. 9 years later, I am finally paying down my student loan debt, But during the first like 7 years that I had it, it was just growing and growing and growing, and I had no idea how I was ever going to be able to pay it off. I wasn't making big money as an attorney. There wasn't really a good, hopeful solution or any near end in sight for us at many points throughout the years, up until very recently where we started paying down our debt. But the reason I bring this up is because this is a super, super serious issue. Like, this is a crisis. Anyone who says the student loan debt crisis is not a crisis, that's bullshit. It is. It's such a crisis. It's affecting the mental health of Americans of all ages. College costs have skyrocketed over the years compared to wages, and that's a huge part of the problem, is that colleges are charging way more than their graduates' starting salaries justify, and it's creating a situation where people are not getting a good return on investment on their loans, and then they're stuck in a situation where their loans just keep growing and growing and growing, and they don't have good information on how to take advantage of the programs that the government put in place to address these things in the best way that they can. There are existing student loan forgiveness programs, and I'm not talking about Biden forgiving like $10,000 or $50,000. Like, if you are on certain income-based repayment plans or public service loan forgiveness, after a certain period of time, your loans will be forgiven. And this is not a scam. It is written into the contracts of your loans. If you follow to a T the things you're supposed to do, and you submit your paperwork at the end of it, your loans will be forgiven. Like, the federal government promised that to you in writing. Now, have I reviewed and researched and become an expert in all the laws on these forgiveness programs? No, that's not what I'm claiming to be. What I'm telling you is I have found a company that is expert in that and can advise you on your options and can explain to you the tax impacts you need to prepare for. Like, if you get student loan forgiveness under certain programs, you may have a big tax hit in a certain year that you need to plan for. Like, these are all things that they are experts in and they can guide you on. The biggest thing that I saw on their website when I was learning more about them is that they reduce the stress associated with student loans because they help educate people on what their options are. And that's what I needed. That's what my husband needed. And that's not something that we ever got. And I just want to say one thing about student loan forgiveness, the programs that are already in place, or if the government forgives student loans. I guarantee you there is not one millionaire or billionaire out there that feels guilty for taking advantage of a tax loophole that is legal, that is built into the tax code. So I do not want anyone out there to tell you that if you take advantage of student loan forgiveness that you are doing anything wrong. You are doing a smart, savvy financial move that millionaires and billionaires take advantage of all the time. So I can't emphasize this enough, that if the government offers you forgiveness in any way, shape, or form, and you, whether on your own or through consultation with an expert like Student Loan Planner, decide that that's the plan that makes most sense for your family, you should unapologetically go for it. Because if it wasn't legal, then you wouldn't be able to do it. But if it's legal and it's an option for you and you don't take it because you feel guilty for doing it, then that is just because there are people trolling out there who don't understand that this is an actual crisis, that this is preventing people from buying homes, stopping them from having children, and stopping people from going to school at all. I'm getting off on a tangent here, but whether there's a program that fits your family is a question I don't know how to answer, and that's where Student Loan Planner comes in. So before I made this video, I did reach out to them to ask if they would give me a link. So if anyone ends up booking through them, through my link, then I get credit for sending you there. But if you go to Student Loan Planner /Low Mills, the link is also in the description for this video, but I'll put it on the screen. You'll see there that you can book a custom plan. So you hit book a custom plan, and the way their fees work is if you have $0 to $200,000 in student loan debt, they charge a flat fee of $395. At least at the time I'm making this video, that's what their fee is if you have less than $200,000. That's gonna be probably most people watching this video. A $395 flat fee is less than I pay in interest in 1 month. To me, it's a no-brainer that if I had known this was an option, I would have happily paid for a consult with them. And then I believe you also get emails with them for up to 6 months. I think that's what it said on the website, is that they'll email with you after the consult for up to 6 months with like any other questions that come up. But I mean, if you have $200,000 to $400,000 of student loans, the flat fee is $495, and more than $400,000 in student loans, the fee is $595. I mean, it's such a reasonable fee compared to the amount of benefit you can get. They've worked with over 5,000 student borrowers, and their average client owes about $250,000 in debt, and they project that they save their clients an average of $59,000. So like I said, if you want to check them out, the link for Student Loan Planner is in the description for the video. Okay, the next thing that I would really highly recommend if you have federal student loan debt and you are looking to pay it off is find a community. There are so many wonderful personal finance communities out on social media, and particularly communities of people that are focused on student loan debt. So me, for example, I post in detail about my husband and my journey to pay off our student loan debt. And I started doing that because we were struggling in dealing with all of it, and I needed an outlet to talk about it, and I also wanted to find a community of people that could relate to me, and I found that through YouTube. And there are many other wonderful YouTubers who post about their student loan debt. I'll put some of them on the screen here, that I follow their channels, and they are inspirational and they are motivating, and I come on their videos and they comment back, and it's just a wonderful community of supportive people. I, being a woman, tend to follow the women more, but there are lots of people out there posting about their journey, and I really feel overall it is a very positive, supportive community that I highly recommend you get involved in, especially if you are struggling emotionally with dealing with your student loan debt. There's also a great Instagram community, and so either YouTube, Instagram, or other platforms, there's a lot of great people out there sharing their story if you want to try to connect. And the last thing that I would recommend you do if you are attacking your student loan debt, if your plan is to pay it off, because that might not necessarily be the plan. If you are going for forgiveness, the plan may be to put as little as possible towards your student loans until you get forgiveness. But if the plan is in fact to pay it off all the way down to zero, then I highly, highly recommend that you track your progress. That's something that we started doing a couple years ago, and it has been so motivating and so instrumental in our success in paying down our debt. We've been tracking our progress paying off all of our debt, our car, our credit card debt, and now our student loan debt. And tracking your progress keeps you motivated, helps you see how far you've come when you're feeling overwhelmed by it all, and helps you get a better sense of what the timeline for your debt payoff looks like. I have a debt payoff tracking spreadsheet that I use. I post videos every single month, and I show you guys the progress we've made and the updates on my spreadsheet. It's actually available for purchase on my Etsy shop if you are interested in checking it out. The link to my Etsy shop is always in the description for my videos. But whether you use my spreadsheet or you make your own spreadsheet or you do a handwritten tracker, like whatever it is, tracking your progress is so important to keeping you motivated on your student loan debt payoff journey. So that is everything for today's video. Those are my tips. Just to recap, first of all, go to studentaid.gov and find out what loans you have. Second, develop a plan. If it's not something you feel like you can figure out on your own, check out Student Loan Planner. See if you want to set up a consult with them to develop a plan. Third, find a community of people that can help you and support you, and you can pay off debt together. And fourth, track your progress. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to follow along on our debt payoff progress and watch me and my husband pay off our 6-figure student loan debt and follow all of our financial progress, then make sure you hit that red subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and I'll see you guys soon in my next video. Bye.